Hello, everyone. This is your host, Brittany, and welcome back to the PCAT and Pre-Pharmacy podcast. This week, we have a special guest who is a fourth-year pharmacy student in Miami, Florida. In this episode, we will discuss his unique path to pharmacy school and also the ultimate goals that he has once he completes his degree. Of course, I couldn't let him go without leaving our audience with some helpful pre-pharmacy tips. So if you're interested in learning more about our guest, please stay tuned. Okay, Moses, thank you for joining us on the podcast today. Can you please tell my audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I'm from Miami, Florida. I currently go to Larkin University, which is a pharmacy school. It's actually in Miami, Florida, but you're going to find it close to, I guess we'll just scratch that. But yeah, so I'm from Miami, Florida, pharmacy student from Larkin University. I'm currently in my final year. Right now, I'm doing my APPE rotations, which APPE is Advanced Pharmacy Practice Experience. So currently doing that at the moment. And yeah.
Thank you. Now, let me ask you, what attracted you to the pharmacy profession? Why did you decide to go to pharmacy school?
So the way that I decided to go to pharmacy school was a little bit very direct and short. And what I mean by that is that I didn't have like an actual plan that specifically I wanted to do pharmacy. I know I wanted to get into the medical field, but I wasn't sure in which profession I was going to get into. And that's how it was kind of very quickly on how I went into the pharmacy profession, because my background is a little bit different as far as how I was brought up and my path to where I am now. So that kind of adjusted and guided my life into, I guess, the pharmacy profession because of the opportunity that I saw applying for it. So I don't want to say it was a spur of the moment, because for a while I did sit on it thinking about which profession to, go after and give it my all. But it took some time to actually get comfortable. After choosing pharmacy, it took some time for me to get comfortable in that, the fact that I'm going to be doing this, in this field, which technically, if you're in pharmacy, you're in the medical field. So it goes beyond that. But that's where I'm at now. So necessarily, I didn't look at pharmacy and say, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But I did see the opportunity that came from it, and also what you can do in the, with the patients, what you can do in the community, how you can make an impact. So that's how I pretty much got into pharmacy. It wasn't necessarily well thought out and planned, but it was along the same path, I guess, for the medical field, which was really interesting to me at first.
Thank you for sharing that, because on this podcast, I would like to, highlight different paths and how people, come to their final decision on what career and how they get into pharmacy. Now, with that being said, did you ever have any reservations, like in the beginning or anything like that, or any backup plan?
As in, if I weren't going to make it into pharmacy school?
Like if you didn't like it?
Oh, if I didn't like it. Well, that's a good question. So for me, I guess that question can be tailored and can be answered much differently depending on who you ask, right? Because for me, I'm not normally a quitter into something I get into. And I know that this is something with a lot of weight on it, I guess, if I can, make it very simple. What I mean by a lot of weight is that I'm investing a lot of money. It's not just myself. I'm also, married. I have a kid. I didn't have a son, at that point when I first got into the profession, but I was married. So for me, it's communication between my wife and I to make sure that, we're going after, because, we're both along in the same life. So it was pretty much, this is what I'm going to do. And this is, I'm going to accomplish it. So I didn't have too much of a doubt, and I didn't look too much of, other options. And I guess I can one thing that was in the back of my mind that probably wasn't allowing me to do that, it goes back to the basis of my background. So for me, I came, at the age of 6 to 7, and I came from Honduras. So I was under this temporary protective status. So I was just under this status pretty much that allowed me to stay in the States. Now I'm 32. So, but this happened probably like within 4 to 5 years ago. And before that, right? So that was before pharmacy school. So before that, pretty much my life was either you're in or you're out in 2 years, but you always have to apply kind of thing. And because of that, I didn't have options, or even people who are still under that status, because I finally just moved to a different status. So, but if you're in that status, you can't really get loans or anything like that. So you pretty much have to work to pay for school, and that was my path. So it's not like necessarily say I was looking at other things because I also didn't have that option, if that makes sense. So I
Yeah,
wasn't
definitely.
thinking like, oh, I'm gonna have a backup plan, because a lot of people talk that way. They're like, oh, just in case this doesn't work out, I'm gonna go ahead and do this, and that's cool. It's just I didn't have that option, but I guess that built something in me that whenever I go into something, then I'm just gonna complete it, not so much. But then again, to everyone is different. But for me, I didn't have so much of a backup. I just thought, when I get into this, what am I gonna make with it? What am I gonna do with it? Like, what impact am I trying to make? And at first, you don't really know which one. At least for me, I didn't know how I was gonna do it. I just knew that I was gonna keep working on it. So, in that sense, I didn't have a backup plan. I'm more thinking of like, what am I gonna be doing with it moving forward, because I'm dedicating my time to it.
I respect that. I respect your response. I really can connect with that, with not having to go through status changes and things like that. But with me starting school, going back to school at such an older age, I have so much at risk. So I definitely understand what you mean by dedicating your time and, you know, not having to have a backup plan, because if you're going to do this, then you have to put
Yeah,
everything in.
yeah.
So thank you for that. Now, can you please tell the audience a little bit about? I know you have a YouTube channel and you share a lot of infographics on Instagram. Just like what inspired you and to start that, and tell the people about your pages and things like that.
Yeah, of course. So thanks for bringing it up. I have a YouTube page. It's called Study RX channel, or you could just look up Study RX, and some of those videos will come up. Through that, I actually share some information. Some of it that you might have come across, it would be journal articles, or um, a, a very short or brief monograph of a medication, which is just information of the medications. And this is more educational, so it's not so much as how one can apply this in the medical field, but it is something to start. And by going off of that, that kind of gives the basis of why I made it and why I kind of started it, because that's something that I've been doing for a while, which is I'll invest my time into something to try to create something that I see that's missing in the field. So this was very young, and I started this at a very early age. I mean, very early stage when I got into pharmacy school. And the main reason of why I wanted to make it, first, it started off with something small. Like, I wanted to get better at making presentations, because I knew that in school, you know, I'm fine with doing a presentation, but I like to do it more so I can get perfect at it. And no one's ever perfect, but you want to, in my thought was, I want to be as comfortable as possible. So that's why I kind of set out to make the educational page, because along with doing that, I have to do a multiple set of things to get that information, to get that data. So I have to do research, which I wasn't good at research, but now I'm much more comfortable at just reading something and being okay with what I'm writing down. I don't really have to think too much of it. So I started this page. First, it started for me just so I can get better in this profession that I'm going to dedicate my life to. So from there, I saw that it can reach out to other students. And by doing that, let's say someone like yourself, they want to get involved, right? We met through Instagram. So you're going to go into the pharmacy profession or in the medical field, something like that at the moment, for so it seems. But if you wanted to get an understanding of some type of information that I may have available, then you can go and view that and get a head start. And that's really the purpose of, I guess, like a general purpose, which is what one thing I know it can accomplish is to educate others. So then in that field, like if it's just pharmacists looking up my videos, then I know they're going to know the minimum, that information. Whereas normally someone might not know and they'll have to go and look it up. So instead of me helping one person out, I can help multiple people across the world. So that's kind of like how I saw this on starting to unfold. So everything I'm explaining, it's now become this multifaceted tool that I can use it to reach out to others, have an organic conversation with someone, which leads to a podcast. And they're, just like how we're doing now. Or, now when I'm doing rounds at the hospital or in a medical team, speaking to other professionals, it's just much more fluent. So I just have much more confidence and, it just takes time. So that's kind of why I started the page. I know it was a long-winded answer, but there's multiple things that kind of have evolved into why I continue it, because it continues to grow as far as what I can do with it. But initially, it started as something for me to practice myself, because that's what I do. I practice in the back end while um, others normally just wait for it to come to them. So I try to prepare before it even happens the best way that I can. So it's like a simulation for me.
Oh yeah. Well, that is great. I will make sure to leave like all of your links and everything below in the description of the podcast. Okay, so before we continue with this wonderful conversation, let's take a quick break. With the next PCAT test registration and actual testing day just around the corner, it is a perfect time to pull out your study materials. Right now, Crack the PCAT is offering a sale for their 3 different PCAT prep packs. Each package comes with refresher video series, a fully simulated practice test with comprehension solutions. However, this is only for a limited time. So make sure to check out crackpcat.com for all of your study needs. Now let's get back to the show. And so you said you were on your last year. Do you have any plans that for after graduation yet, or do you have like a kind of a goal that you want to set for yourself?
Yeah, definitely. So goals are always changing for me, but at the current moment, it's I guess the general the general theme of all of my goals, I guess. At the current moment, in the short term, it would be to gain my take my clinical skills even further. Um, and currently that's what I'm doing. So just to prepare for that. So after graduation, definitely work, but continue to reach out to others. So what I'm doing now, but at a bigger scale, social media wise, and also in work or school. I mean, sorry, also in my job. If I do residency or if I go retail and whatnot, I definitely have a plan, which is to set out for residency. But yeah, I mean, talking about goals after graduation or plans, I don't have anything as far as, oh, I want to go vacation, or even though I do want to go vacation, don't get me wrong, but my mind is set on how can I get better, so that way when I hit the profession with, after graduation, I'm already, I guess, helping the field, assisting in some way, coming in and giving what I can give as far as with all the skills that I've gained. So those are really my plans, to try to give it as much as possible and continue that path. There are definitely 3, 5, 10 years, and we can go on into that, but that would be like a different question, really. But after graduation, it's just to continue that drive. And what I'm doing now, as far as the social media page, um, make it much more, I guess, professional, because there's still much more room for that. Content wise, make it much more bigger, because in the sense of in-depth knowledge, because now that I've been in the field a little bit more, I understand um, more or less the information that's most pertinent when you're talking about a disease state, rather than when you read it in the book. They give you A through Z, but when you're really in the field, the most pertinent is probably M and O. So, and you don't get that unless you're in the actual hospital, which is good for you, because I believe you're working in the hospital now
Yeah.
and you're actually able to get that information. However, the only thing you're missing is that perspective from a pharmacist. So you're kind of in there right now and you can only see, but you don't have that full perspective yet that you'll have like when you start your pharmacy program and then you're working at the hospital, because then you're going to start getting all curious, start researching more info. Oh, I know what this means now. Oh, I know what all these other things mean, and they've been right in front of me this whole time. I could have been assessing a certain patient, to try to get there before that exam comes. So that's going to be real helpful for you. But for me, plans afterwards is, yeah, just pretty much keep that going.
Now, so a follow up to that question, do you have an ultimate goal? Like, I know we're always learning and we're always moving, and different opportunities may come our way. But with, going through school and things like that, did you have or do you have like an ultimate goal of, if something else might come my way, but if I could just do like work at this location or help in this research, then I would definitely be satisfied with my professional career.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever be satisfied, to be honest. I've actually been giving that some question, because when I accomplish one thing, there's always something else, and there's always something else. So, but the main ultimate goal, I think, the main ultimate goal is to pretty much change the pharmacy field in a huge way. I forget the actual name of the last pharmacist who revolutionized, which kind of tells you, like if most people or a good amount of people can't remember it, then you know, I definitely need to look that up. But I want to be the 2019 or 2020, 2025 person, pharmacist, that took pharmacy to where they're trying to get it at right now. In which ways that will be, it'll be much more different than others, just because I do things differently. I look at the I'm always looking at the bigger picture, and that's just a strength of mine. It's not, that I just look for it. It just happens. So how to accomplish that is going to take a lot. And that's usually what I plan for, to try to make well thought out ideas, plans, or implementations to the workflow that are going to, take it that step further, rather than little by little. And the ultimate goal there is pretty much not to just make an impact within the pharmacy field, because that's I guess accomplishable. I mean, that's very doable, and in
Mm-hmm.
different ways, right? But I think it would be very, very cool if I were to take it to somewhere that others wouldn't see anymore. At the current moment, they're trying to get prescriber status. So,
Yeah.
you know, if by what I do can bring pharmacy to the limelight, as far as pharmacists are doing this, pharmacists are making these changes, and it doesn't take just myself, right? So like I would create something, maybe it helps out in the community that I'm in within the hospital, but now that plan or that workflow or that uh how do I say it? So yeah, so basically if that plan is applicable to other hospitals or other systems, it becomes multifaceted. And by that, then, hey, this guy made this. Moses made this. That's yeah. Who is he? A pharmacist. Where from down the block? So because you got to start networking. So you already know you're doing this right now, right? You're starting this page. I'm assuming so you can network, and you've done a really good job at it. But now when you're starting to make all these little implementations at the hospital, you gotta find a way that that gets distributed to others, so that way they can see that you're putting in the work. Because yeah, it's great that your boss sees it, but now that it's 2019, through social media or through other ways, LinkedIn, you can expand that to the director of another hospital from, across the state. Because, maybe that's somewhere you would like to do residency and you have family over there. So you're like, I can do this place over here. I know the area. I know the community. I'd be a great asset for this hospital, you know?
Yeah.
So through there, pretty much that's how I've kind of gotten it to where I'm at now for the ultimate goal. And I don't think that changes. There are micro goals and macro goals. So like goals that I have in the short term, in the long term. I don't see them too much as goals. I just see them so much as stepping stones for where I need to get to. Um, and I guess I plan well enough that sometimes I'm not too surprised, even though people are like, "Oh, great job." I just see it as like, you know, I guess that's cool. I'm not trying to be, I guess, come off cocky or in any sense. I'm try to stay as humble as possible. But I realize my strengths, and that's where I can assist people, or that's where I can help a team out to go further. Um, but the ultimate goal at the end is to revolutionize the pharmacy field in some way. You know, but fast. I don't want to be 60 and then like, hey, he did a great job, blah blah blah. He's 60, but that's way too late. I want to enjoy it. I want to be 40, at 40, 41, and then I did it so quickly. I brought pharmacy that much step further, or I've raised the field that much higher. So that's the ultimate goal, just to try to change or revolutionize pharmacy in a positive uh, direction.
Great, and I do wish you well on all of your endeavors. Everything sounds awesome, and hopefully, once you plant that seed, I will be right behind you, making changes if everything goes well. Great, great. So I have one final question for you, and it's just do you have any tips? Our podcast is kind of focused on, of course, pharmacy in general, but the pre applicants and everybody that are looking to get information, because what I found was that there's a lot of information regarding other medical fields on, the process. And of course, we can't tell everybody exactly the things to do to get in or anything like that. But I just find that there's a lack of information, and just kind of giving somebody the sense of you're not the only one going through this and things like that. So were there any, like tips or anything that you can give to like the pre-pharmacy students, or maybe even, P1 through P3 who are looking for us to get to where you are, with graduating. So any tips in general for any of the students?
Oh, okay. So that it's pretty broad. Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Let's see. So yeah, so let's say pre-pharmacy, and we'll just go from there. So
Okay.
for for pre-pharmacy students, I don't know in which stage they're at, if because anyone can change their minds at any moment. Pre-pharmacy, you're kind of in a place where you're still an undergrad, your life is still probably good, you have time to go hang out or whatnot, depending on what age group you're in. So for pre-pharmacy, I would say start. It depends on what people's goals are. So I'll tell you about myself. So for me, um I started applying as soon as I became eligible, I guess, in the minimum requirements. I think you understand, which one I'm talking about. So when you look at different schools, I'm pretty sure you've noticed that some of them have different requirements than others. So that different requirement, you have to, one, if you already meet the requirement for 10 schools and someone can see themselves in that program, then go ahead and apply. However, from experience speaking to others, not just, my experience, but gathering information from others and what kind of direction they took it, some of them actually responded with, "No, you know what? I'll wait another year and a half because I want to get my bachelor's first to then apply." So some people did different things because some might have much more time than others. I just thought, hey, as soon as it comes, go for it. Because the way that I see it as a market. It's more of like, it's really, to some sense, a business. Because in reality, some of these people, they get into a certain profession, right? Some students get into a profession and they think it's going to be amazing. They think it's going to be grand, that they just go and then they play house, Dr. House, and then everything's cool or whatever. But it's not like that. There's a lot of work that needs to be put into that. And depending on which field you go into, the outcome of where you can end up, or the different variations of where your profession can go, can really change. Just like going back to how you said that some people start and then they back out.
Okay, so did you use any websites or forums that helped you through the application process, or that you used to research the schools that you wanted to apply for?
To If it's pre-pharmacy, what I did is definitely go look at Student Doctor Network and find the school there and go through the forums. You can see what other students said, even if it's not the most relevant. Try to go back as far as back as possible to try to get the whole understanding of the school, how it functions. That way you can see the different changes that they've kind of made. And once you do that, then what I did is I went to the actual program. I went to the actual program to visit or to try to get an interview, right? And when I did that, I was able to see that some schools, and this is just the one example, that some schools have 130 seating. So within an hour's time, 130 students trying to ask a question. Not to say that they're all going to raise their hands, but it might draw up a lot of time. So when I looked at my program, which was smaller in size, I saw the opportunity that I can reach out to faculty, on a much more quicker basis and on a one-on-one. So that way I get that direct feedback as quick as possible. That's just one thing that I saw because it has a bit of a correlation to the forum where students were giving that feedback. So I went to observe it myself and to witness that was true, because that you can also ask the other students who are in the program when you go to these when you go visit these sites for the interviews. So through there, I was like, yeah, you know what? I don't really like a huge class. Um, and I was able to understand that through Student Doctor Network, which is really great for pre-pharmacy students. So that's where you can start looking at where you want to go. And then the other thing that I would say, that some students, I would say a lot of students get fixated on it, not some. And me too. So, I can't say that I wasn't there, but just speaking from experience, don't let the PCAT be you know, be the main thing that sets you in your application, because these schools definitely look at what you've done as a leader, what you've done academically, in the past. Maybe it was just that one exam. You probably didn't get 79. Whoever's taking the exam, they probably didn't get 79. They probably got 49. But they have all these other qualities that they really need to be confident in what they have, so then they can see that when they go to these interviews. Because if you don't have that confidence and you have a low score at the same time, then that just leaves room for, I don't know, what did you guys think? And although they ask each other, you want to try to make it as seamless as possible for them to decide that, yeah, this is the person that we want here. So having an understanding of what the school is going to make everything much easier, because then I was confident in that room talking to them. They're going to ask, why do you want to come here? So if you know all those things and you're already much more comfortable and you already understand that, Your PCAT score is not what really defines you, is you as a whole, like as a whole person, not just, that one score. Then you're in a good position. From there on, more than likely that person, so like myself, I applied to the places that I really saw myself in. So yeah, it might be a little bit all across the state, or it might just be, in the US or in just one state. But if you've chosen them and you're confident with them, then there should be no problem as far as, you're going to get one of them. Um, just try to apply and then leverage yourself as much as possible if you're a pre-pharmacy student. Don't worry so much about the PCAT. Make sure that you're able to correlate your experiences and how you would like to apply that in pharmacy school as a student, because that's as much as you can do. You can't really try to butter them up and come out with the medical information or anything like that. At that moment, you're just a student, but you want to show that you're going to be dedicated to the program and that you're not going to stop just because one grade was bad. So, and you need to show that through that interview. So student doctor network, get in love with the school and completely understand it before. Go observe them, go to those interviews or email the students. And then lastly, definitely do not let the PCAT score define who you are. So just make sure that you keep pushing on as much as possible and that they're not just looking to define you from that one exam that you took that day. So those are the main key points. But I would say, if someone has to study, then that's on a whole, it's not a whole nother level, but it's a conversation as far as it depends, right? Like let's say you, for example, you work and you juggle a bunch of things, which is amazing, right?
Yes.
So that having that is really good, but not a lot of people know how to juggle all that stuff. So some things, and I'm speaking from experience and also things that I've corrected in myself, right? So a lot of people try to juggle all these things and they can't really get certain stuff done as far as assignments and all these other connections that they need to reach out to, get a letter of recommendation. And that kind of delays the process and it just it doesn't make it, I guess, it makes it more difficult. It makes it like you're dragging through and making sure that that application process for you is as easy as possible is going to make it's going to make the experience much more enjoyable, um from my experience. But for pharmacy students, I guess in the studying aspect, you know one thing you can do is definitely go check out on YouTube. His name is Ali Abdal, Abdal. And I don't want to say incorrectly where he's from. And I know he's from Europe, but so he's a medical doctor. And pretty much he is one of the channels that I kind of ran into. And luckily, I ran into. And he was giving studying tips. And one thing about me is that I usually take things to heart and I try to drive on exactly that, if it sounds correct. And he gives evidence-based information, so it's not like he is just announcing what worked for him, although he is mentioning that. He also tells you how it was done in the studies and how it worked. So I'll give you an example. One of the things I learned from him is, well, that I saw in one of his videos, is him talking about how students tend to write down a lot of things over and over and over. So studies have shown that that's not the best way. It does have an impact on the students' learning and comprehension of the material. That's great. But if you're doing it over and over and over, you're not maximizing the other ways you can be studying that information to retain it even more. I don't know if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Right. So he shows you a bunch of different things. And then this is how I put it into perspective, right? So like, let's say I'm writing it down once. So I learned the value in writing it down. Before I would do it digitally and things of that nature, or I would type it out. But I noticed typing it out, you have a different level of comprehension, like when you're in the exam. So I noticed that I had to write it down. Okay, I wrote it down. And then I started saying it to myself, like reading it out loud, because I've seen other students do that. And that's a really good trait to have, saying it out loud or saying it back to yourself and repeating it. So I've written it down. Now I said it out loud. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to take it a step further. Like, what else can I do? So I started looking at my downtime. So I said, you know what? I'm going to record my voice. So then that way, in my downtime, rather than listening to music, I listen to the material, but in a summarized version. So rather than, sitting in and listening for 30 minutes of a lecture, I can summarize it into 10 minutes. So that way, let's say I'm going out for a jog or something like that, and that's all I need to listen to. I can listen to it once or twice in under 20 minutes, you know? So something that students can do, like if I had to do it again, if definitely, if I had to do it again, this is what I would do. I would record me talking through my talking points of whatever topic I'm doing, because it's a lot. You have to go. So like, let's say someone wanted to maximize their PCAT, definitely do that. Go through the biology if that's the weakest point. Like, let's say for me, example, I was weakest in biology. I would go through it and then just start talking about the key points that I highlighted from that chapter. It might be big, but instead of having to reread it and go through the pages, they're black and white, they're really stale, and sitting there, you're like, oh, I gotta go study, and then you're like, oh, I gotta, not you, but I'm saying like myself, I would just be like, oh, I have to dedicate some time. I have to start spacing this, and it just doesn't seem enjoyable. It just seems more of like you have to grind, and that's great. But looking back from what I know now, doing it in that way would be seamless. It's almost like as if I would just go to the exam, be confident that I would get a great exam, a great score. So not to say that you need to get 99 to get to somewhere, unless it's, I don't know, top 10 schools in the country. But you know, I to me it doesn't matter where you go for your degree. To me, it matters what you do with it. And to a lot of directors and preceptors, that's pretty much the ideology or mentality that they have. And that's something that I have. So what I would say is the sooner someone starts, implementing new ways to try to maximize their memory retention, I think that's a really good start. And they should have no problem when they make that transition into the actual pharmacy school. So I guess it's more of like a two answer there, because when you're transitioning into the program, you're going to have a certain type of groove, and that definitely would work in there. So it wouldn't be bad, because it's mainly repetition, and it's not as big as undergrad with the load of material.
Okay. Great. Thank you. You gave such great information. And then that was the last of my questions. Did you have any other tidbits you wanted to leave with the audience or anything?
Um
I mean, you don't have to. I just wanted to
yeah.
ask.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'm open to helping out. One of the roles that I take pretty much in my school is assisting in that sense, but not just to anyone. It's because, I join organizations or fraternity that puts me into those positions. So I'm very into, I'm very open into helping others. Just like, I helped you for no reason, right? So I think you were doing fine on your own, but I'm always into the sense of, or the approach that I take is that if I see that I can assist someone to, make them that much better, or as a certain tool that they're just not aware of, I'm always open to, bringing that up and seeing how I can help someone reach um reach their goals. Pretty much, it's helpful for me, not only because I like to help others, but it's also helpful for me because that's also understanding of different perspectives. So if I had never helped that person out, I probably wouldn't know what I needed to learn to help to make sure that, that goes through. And having to look at what my strengths are, that weird, to me it's weird, but that weird strength is pretty much what's gotten me to where I am now. So if anyone needs any help for PCAT or in just the field itself, definitely feel free to reach out. And they can contact me through either StudyRx on Instagram, StudyRx IG, or through YouTube on the StudyRx channel at gmail.com. So, in either of those, the main thing of my whole long message here is that if anyone needs help in any way, um, I'm definitely um, open to giving back to everyone. So, just feel free to reach out.
Thank you. In closing, I would just like to thank Moises again for being a guest on our show this week. And if you would like to be a guest on our show, please contact me at podcast@crackpcat.com. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share all of our episodes with anyone that may be interested. And I'll see you on the next one.